In this episode of Property Journal, I'm talking to Caroline Marsh. She's going to talk about from coming over from Zambia with absolutely nothing over to the UK, to then being featured on Secret Millionaire, building up a property investment portfolio, and then being forced to pivot in 2020 during the COVID crisis, and actually turning that portfolio of properties into something that's giving so much back to the community around where she lives. I can't wait to talk to her. Caroline, thank you so much for joining me.
Well, John, I'm the one to thank you. Thanks for having me. Really looking forward to it.
So tell me about Caroline Marsh.
Caroline Marsh. So who really is Caroline Marsh? Big question. Well, first of all, I'll describe myself as a wife, mum, mum of 3 boys, grandmother as well. I just became a grandmother 2 years ago. That's right. Girlfriends to my girlfriends, entrepreneur, philanthropist. I love to help others, making a difference in community. That's almost, it almost like defines who the real me is. When I give back, I feel a sense of fulfillment, and I think that then almost sums up Caroline as an individual, a person that I believe is here on this earth to impact humanity.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
We could stop there. It's amazing. But let's go back to Caroline growing up and the journey that I'd love to just start from, your upbringing.
Oh my goodness. And how long do we have?
Tell me.
Wow. So I was born and brought up in Zambia in Central Africa, and I lived there all my life until a few years when my husband and I moved to the UK for better opportunities. But growing up, I'm one of 4. I'm the only girl. I was daddy's girl. Unfortunately, when I was 13, my father, who was my greatest inspiration, he died. And life became a massive challenge for my mother to have to bring up 4 children on her own, single income. Life was tough. But at the same time, I remember some of the good memories of being a child, just enjoying my life and holding on to my dreams. One of my dreams was to become an air hostess. So I just loved the glamour.
Where did that dream come from?
Wow. It was an interesting one. We were watching TV once when I was much younger, and I saw an advert of a lady that wore the nice, beautiful hat, well prepared and just looked glamorous. And it was a British Airways. And I just thought, when I grow up, I want to be an air hostess. But my mother at the time was not pleased, because she said, look, if you are an air hostess, you were simply a glorified waitress. You cannot go to school and end up as a waitress. So, but anyway, long story short, that was my dream. And I held on to my dream until I had an opportunity in 1995, many years ago. A local airline was recruiting, and I put myself in front of the interviewers, and I thought, I want to have this job. Out of 5,000 applicants for 10 positions, I was fortunate enough to be one of the 10. And then I began to live my dream. My life changed. My family's lives changed. Everybody else, I impacted lives in a positive way, because not only was I enjoying my dream, but I was actually earning money that would make a difference for me and for my family and enhance people around me. And that was really exciting. So that was, my career changed and my life changed.
So you're independent now, you're traveling, you're seeing the world.
I was traveling, yes. I enjoyed, I traveled around the world. Life was amazing. Now that didn't last a very long time, because 2.5 years later, that particular airline went into liquidation, and that meant I was then losing my job. And I lost my job. The only hope that I had was to access my last paycheck from the company that was liquidating the airline. So I went to this accounting firm to go and collect my paycheck. And I walked in there to collect my paycheck. And unfortunately, the liquidator was not very impressed with me giving me my paycheck. And I thought, I'm not leaving until I get my paycheck. Long story short, I got to see the liquidator, and the liquidator gave me 2 things. One was my paycheck, and he asked me to go on a date with him. So I thought, okay, that's unusual. Long story short, I went out on a date with him, and I fell in love with him, and I married him. And so he's my husband today. So that's, out of all the things that would have gone wrong, there was something positive that came out of it. And so
early life lesson.
You want something, go for it. So
and out of a negative can come a positive.
I know, absolutely.
Cool.
So so that was.
So where are you based now at this point? Are you UK based, or are you still?
I'm UK based. So moving fast forward from 2003, my husband and I came to the UK for better opportunities. And so we lived in Swindon, and life was very different for me. Having to leave Africa, where I've grown up all my life. Yes, I had to travel, but actually it's the culture changes, it's the environment, the weather, the people, everything was very different. So I had to adapt to making those changes and coming to live in the UK. And so we lived here since then. I've been in England, and I've had to just learn to love the country, and now I'm in love with the country. And I'm based in Swindon. That's where our business is. And so here we are.
Awesome. So I know that around about the time of 2006, 2007, which is when we first met.
That's right.
You had already, I'm skipping forward, you'd already established yourself as a property investor, and there was a media.
I know, I get the media.
So how did that, I haven't pieced that together before.
Right.
So what was the journey there?
What happened?
Yeah.
So here is 2006 for me is where it started. I went on a journey just asking myself, why am I here? What is the point to my life? And I think it was the frustration of our son was born, and I love being a mum, I love being a stay-at-home mum, I love being a wife, but there was something else I was missing.
A purpose and a focus.
Purpose and a sense of fulfillment, because we can all go through life and having all these things, and there's still an emptiness in you. And so it was on that journey that I thought, I'll take some time out. In fact, I'm a Christian, so I thought I'm going to be praying, but I want to have some time away. And in that time away, my husband was going to a business conference in Malta. Right. And I thought, I'll come along, but I'll be, on holiday and reading and discovering. On the second day of the conference, he said to me, do you want to come along and just listen, because we have some interesting speakers? And I walked into this conference room feeling so intimidated. I've never been to college or university. And so I was entering a room of all these business people, and I thought, gosh, I have nothing to offer. I'll just sit in the background. And in hearing Steve Bolton, a speaker, got up to speak and talk about property investments. And he was talking about how you can maximize rental income and what you can do. And I thought, that's me. I must just connect with him. So during our lunch break, I went up to him and I just said, look, will you mentor me? Now, I have nothing, okay? I've not been to college or university. So if you're looking for all the qualifications, I haven't got them. However, I have myself to offer. Will you teach me? He said, if you want, if you're willing to learn, of course. And so that was a journey. So we came back to the UK, and Steve so kindly agreed to mentor me and took on the mentorship program with him. And he worked with me personally, and I'm eternally grateful, because it's that moment that actually turned my whole life around. Then I began to see the power of possibilities. And he just helped me redefine my world and understand there is more to humanity. There is more that I can become. And so grateful. My life since then changed. Fast forward 2008, I had then bought my properties. Obviously my journey was accelerated, because I bought my properties in year. I bought first few quite aggressively, as I'm sure you may have heard the story. So I was just like so hungry. I want to get there like now. Bought the properties, and in the purchasing process, obviously I then acquired enough, and then the TV program approached Steve. Would you want to be on the TV program and Secret Millionaire?
Secret Millionaire.
That's correct. And so he said to me, Caroline, do you want to be a part of this whole thing? And I thought, okay, fine. I went on and I did the TV program, The Secret Millionaire. Now, that was a massive challenge. And the reason I say this, John, is that coming from Africa, we always get to hear of England as a place of milk and honey. Like, everything is amazing. Yeah. And I didn't realize the levels of poverty and deprivation in this country. I was sent to Toxteth in Liverpool, and posing as a single mother in that environment was the most challenging time of my life. Coming to meet people that are in a country where, you have got welfare system here, and life is amazing. In Africa, we don't have social services. We don't have access to finance and being looked after by the government. And yet, people are not depressed. And I kept thinking, well, what? You're telling me you're depressed? I think you're just being lazy. Now, that was me being very, very skeptical and, in fact, very ignorant. So I then, having gone on the program and spent that time on my own with my son as a single mother, I experienced levels of depression, a sense of feeling so lonely, feeling this isn't right.
Sure.
You know, having to hear of gun crime and people are poor, seeing communities where people are really challenged in this country, that just opened up my eyes to think, do you know what else can I do to make a difference? And so if you ask me again, would you do the program again? No, I would not even have to pay me. I wouldn't. It's torturous.
Yeah. But at the same time, that life experience and that
Changed
correlation, totally, and gave you the experience and the knowledge that was going on in the country, that the perceptions were very different. And actually, it's probably not highlighted enough.
No.
Even now, right?
No.
I mean, it's
no, it's not. So
cultural problem.
Cultural problems, yeah. But obviously, so here we are now. I think I'd say I'm more enlightened.
Yes.
And I'm aware of what I can do. How I can impact my own community in my local area, you know, at a national level, but also just within my own neighborhood. So I began to speak a lot. So my speaking journey took me off from being a property investor to empowering others.
And when you say you were teaching that, was that in the UK or was that back in Africa? Or
Both? Both,
yeah.
But so in Africa, we were teaching banks. Can you imagine banks? So I work with the national banks, international banks, just going in there. Unfortunately, what was happening in the banking system was many of their employees would borrow money and then live beyond their means. And unfortunately, they had a few unfortunate instances where people took their lives because they couldn't cope, and those issues were becoming, you know, a continuous thing for the banks. And so they thought, can we integrate some programs within the organizations? And so we went and did financial education, which was obviously,
That's interesting, because that actually brings the conversation into mental health. So you are educating them as well as that whole mindset.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Can I talk to you about your mindset? You're clearly driven, you're clearly focused, and that feels like a constant if you go through the journey of you know, listening to you there. At what point did you really focus on that? Can you remember that coming naturally to you as a youngster and sort of, you know, from seeing the air stewardess advert and going, I'm going to have that, so like I'm manifesting.
Yeah.
Has that always come naturally to you, or have you kind of worked on that?
I've had to work on it.
Okay.
Now, I think there is an element of maybe where perhaps it was my circumstances. So I'm not sure you remember, but when I shared about my father, when my father died when I was 13, and people go from rags to riches. We went from riches to rags. So our financial position changed significantly, and I had to grow up quite quickly. Yeah. By the time I was 17, I was literally looking after my family, like fending for my family, looking after my brothers.
Were you the oldest? Because you mentioned you had 3.
No, I wasn't, second born. But my elder brother was very academic. Yeah. So he had to pursue his university, whereas I couldn't go to university. So I had to quickly get a job and help support the family. So because of that, perhaps it's your circumstances cause you to just get up and go and just go and make things happen. So I was trading from a very young age, buying and selling stuff before I was in the job. When I was an air hostess, yes, that was all the glamour. However, every time I went to another country, it wasn't just for my normal shift pattern of being an air hostess. I'd always have I'll have a business transaction. So I'll take some orders from people in Zambia, say, look, I'm going to bring you spare parts. What do you need? Do you need clothing? Do you need shoes? And I'll go and buy this stuff, put them on a flight and take them back. And so the trading part was just part of engineered in me. Which is the
quintessential side hustle in today's...
That's the right word, John. So
you were way ahead of your time.
I was way ahead of just like, we're just going to make more money and help brilliant. That person and that person. And so that is, I think many of us do have it. If you have circumstances that...
Yeah, but a lot of people have got the circumstances may force it, but a lot of people may not have the vision to execute it. There's, you know, we all hear about successes and so on. What do you think you could say is one of the hardest things you had to deal with, or a sort of a failure that, dare I say, at the time was, you know, really tough, but you sort of learned from as well. What would you say that would be out of the whole of your life?
My life, I think one of the things is losing my dad.
I thought you said
You know,
but that was out of your control.
yes.
So,
yeah.
so you had to build resilience emotionally from that,
That's
and you
right,
became
yeah,
probably
yeah.
a woman very quickly.
Yeah.
But you've got a business story. You've got a successful business.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you've felt you failed at, and then actually when you look back on, you know, how you dealt with it, or how you pivoted, or not necessarily failed,
Yeah.
but certainly
Yeah.
a bump in the road? Is there anything there that?
I think a lot of things, to be fair. I think initially when I was starting off as a property investor, there are a few things that were quite challenging for me. Having come from Africa, so there's cultural differences, sense of inadequacy, because obviously I didn't feel I belonged, I didn't feel I was the right match. I was a black young female. So it's almost as if all these three things were a massive obstacle for me.
That was in your head, though.
It was in my head, yeah. And some of it, I had actually encountered it, even not in my head, but face to face. So when I was doing, I'll give a typical example. I did the mentorship with Steve Bolton, and Steve came to Swindon to mentor me as a young mentee.
Sure.
And he left after a few interviews, and so he left me with the tools. So I was able to go out and find tradesmen on my own.
Yes.
The rejection that I experienced being a woman was terrible. Being a black young woman, it just made it, exactly.
Wow.
So in the end, I had to just think past, that's what the man thinks. I remember one time, this electrician came up and I asked him, you know, he was looking for Mrs. Marsh. Because obviously over the phone, I called him, and when you come to the property, you find Caroline Marsh, Mrs. Marsh. So he came looking for Mrs. Marsh, and I didn't match to him and Mrs. Marsh. Drove to the place, not kidding, drove to the place and said to me, Mrs. Marsh. I said, well, I am Mrs. Marsh. And he looked at me, top to bottom, got in his car and drove off. Oh. And that just destroyed me, thinking, and then what? And it happened twice.
Right.
I think the third time, I just thought to myself, okay, get yourself back up on and just do it, you know. And the thing that I held on to was, why am I doing this? I have my own goals and my dreams. Yeah. It's like, I'm doing it because of that. So just get up and go and do it. Yeah. And
which again goes back to your inner resilience and your own the whole manifesting and goal setting.
That's
but you had to push through some adversity. And again, referencing Jack, the mental health platform, and some of the stories that from a lived experience point of view, that you know, people from different races have dealt with, particularly going back to those sorts of times and previous. It's pretty terrifying.
It is.
However, the positive is it does feel like that's massively changing in the more recent years.
Absolutely.
Do you feel that? Do you
of
feel
course,
that? Just,
yes. Of course, yeah. I think we now, as a black woman myself, I feel that's no longer the big issue, because everybody else life is changing. Yeah. You know, people are accepting of, we are all different, you know, however, it doesn't make you more superior because you're of a different colour to myself. And so it's no longer the colour barrier, but actually it's, can you deliver? Yeah. It's based on your abilities. If you can't deliver, then, you know, useless. Whether you're black or white, doesn't really matter.
But that for me is that's what we're striving to achieve. That is the diversity, and then actually
absolutely, and that's it, diversity.
Yes, and it goes back to the sort of the survival of the fittest, but without any kind of exclusions. So that can only be a good thing, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So what's your greatest weakness?
I can be a bit intense. Yeah. I think I can be a bit intense, and sometimes when I become too intense, I put too much pressure on myself. Yeah. And that then does affect me negatively. So I can get quite stressed easily. Yeah.
I can identify with that.
Yeah. So I'm one of those ones where, and people might struggle to work with me because I'm it's like, we haven't finished. Yeah. But it's time, I don't care what time it is. Yeah. We haven't finished. Yeah. So that can be massive.
You're trying to get the maximum out of
especially
the goals you've set. It goes back to the stewardessing days where you're not just happy to do the job, you've got to fulfill some other bits as well.
Yeah, but in a team, that doesn't work in my favour. because then my expectations are really high,
Yeah.
and I put pressure on everybody else, and it's not necessary. So I've had to keep learning to just back off a little bit,
Yeah.
and give people a breathing space,
Yes.
and give yourself breathing space, because then I get stressed too, and when I get stressed, I need to come back to baseline, because then I'm just not functioning.
Right.
I'm too tired, and snap, and so
I was going to actually ask you, because that whole juggling life, juggling business, juggling being a mum, being a wife, and actually making time for yourself, you've just clearly elaborated on that. But in terms of overall balance, do you feel you've got that right? Do you feel like you're sort of...
I can't say, I'm not sure whoever arrives at this perfect place, but because I certainly haven't arrived. I'm on my way there. The one thing I've learned,
juggling, right?
Exactly, and I've learned that is understanding what are my big rocks.
Yeah.
What are these big things that I have to put in my jar, first of all, and then everything else, is secondary.
Yes.
So it's knowing that what's important to me, going back to my values, my family, my husband and kids, they're important. So I need to allow time with them. My physical health is so important, and I can't just afford to just get up and eat and do whatever I want to do and expect that I'll be, fit and do life perfectly well. So I have to include my fitness. That's important to me, what I eat and my sleep and things like that. So it's going back to the things that are important to me, and then structure my world around that and know when to stop.
Yes.
So, yeah.
So the physical fitness side of things and the nutrition side of things, can you elaborate? I'd love to know. What is a sort of typical week, if you could describe it? How are you getting the cardio in and
all of that in?
Yeah.
So remember I said to you, I don't like working in the afternoon. So my afternoons are usually for my fitness. Cool. So I try and do fitness 4 times a week.
Yeah.
So minimum 45 minutes a day per time, like intense. Yeah. I do like HIIT training more than anything else.
Cool.
So all this, again, I had to incentivize myself by starting a program through Vitality. And Vitality rewards you for all your points. So my target was, if I can get, all I have to is maintain my platinum, then I know that I will be doing good to me, looking after me for the rest of the world. Yeah. And so I have to maintain that. So I just keep at platinum level.
It's a good discipline in the background, isn't it?
Yeah,
I haven't done this. I'm
no.
pretty good at being my own discipline, but that I hear is
really, I love it.
Yeah, and you're rewarded for it.
And I reward it for it. I get my free coffees, and I just like, okay, I got my reward for today. I get all the, I don't use all the rewards, but it's just knowing that I'm achieving my. I said to myself, I will achieve this goal, and I'm getting there, and I've done it. Yeah. So I have to maintain that.
It goes back to the fact that you're a goal setter. So if a goal is set for you, you've got to hit it, right? You've got to achieve it.
That's right, yeah. And I do it for me. It's the one thing that I keep saying to myself, I don't do it for anybody else, do it for you. Because you're if you look after you for everybody else, it's the best thing. Don't look after yourself for others. Look after yourself because you look after Caroline. Yeah. Because Caroline matters to the world. Yes,
I love that.
Yeah,
people need to think more like that.
Yeah.
It's I don't know how you feel about it in terms of the general movement, but there seems to be a lot of people that just they're not very kind to themselves. They don't.
No.
The inner voice.
No.
It's said a lot, isn't it? People wouldn't talk to their best friend like that or their family.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people struggle with that. I don't know whether you've come through a journey where at one time you ever were like that.
Yeah.
I've certainly probably had a bit of a kind of up and down with it, but overall you've got to big yourself up and you've
self-care. Self-care, really important.
Yeah.
Really important. I think for me it may have stemmed from part of, maybe I'll call it, maybe selfishness from an air hostessing point of view. I just love the whole glam and look after yourself. So it's like, look after me. So I think I've carried on from there, from looking after to actually looking after. What does looking after Caroline really mean? What is it about my mind? And if I look after me, I'll be kind to my sons. If I look after me, I'll be kind to my husband. Yeah. I'll be kind to people around me. And if I don't look after me, I'll be snapping. And I notice it in myself.
Yes.
I just
it's good to be self-aware. So important.
It is. Yeah, that's right.
So you pivoted from a credit crunch point of view, property-wise, and what you're doing is phenomenal. Is there another journey, do you feel, within property investing that you're either lining up, you're smiling? I don't know if there's obviously if you could scale that, I don't know how financially that works as a model.
Yeah.
Because if you could, that'd be incredible. But have you got another journey you think?
I
within the property
do,
sector?
yes, I do. And I think it's more on creating, it's not just property investments, it's actually we're thinking of how do we create homes and also opportunities for these individuals.
Yeah.
So the biggest problem is they will come into our placement and they're amazing and we offer them these services. However, how do we equip them practically?
Yeah.
So it's how do we create in-house provisions? So have a coffee shop, have a mechanics workshop, have a bricklaying or property development where they would come into our placement and they actually have first-hand experience and they leave the placement with a skill.
Yeah.
So we want to provide an atmosphere or an environment for them to aspire, but also give practical tools that here it is at the end of your 3, 5, 6 years with KYS, you've got your qualification, you're now a bricklayer. You've got your qualification, you're a beautician.
Yeah.
You've got it. So that's if I could have the best ideal, that's what we're aiming for.
Caroline, you are so inspiring.
Well,
Trailblazing. And I love your latest venture is clearly something that's so needed.
Thanks, John.
Amazing. I've absolutely loved talking to you.
Well,
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, John.